what is the financial product that you need the AFSL for? So that is the biggest complication, because if you're looking in traditional finance, if you want to sell bonds or sell derivatives, it's very clear what you're transacting in. In fact, sheet 225 at ASIC, it doesn't define what are financial products and what aren't. So if you get you're an exchange and you've got a bunch of tokens listed on your exchange, previously you didn't need an AFSL, now you do, maybe. Right? And ASIC's saying, we're not going to tell you which tokens we think are financial products and which ones are not. That's up to you to work out. So that's complicated, right? So that puts the individual, the exchanges, anybody that's playing in the space at risk, because they're just uncertain of what they can and can't do. So that really makes it complex.
One of the things that we already have set in place that is really, really good is the government has made a really good proposal. It recognises that, hey, trying to regulate crypto tokens at the token level is really difficult. There are so many different types of tokens, they have so many different outcomes, they're constantly changing, and we never really know what it is that we're sort of looking at, because everyone's trying every version of experimentation that we've ever had before. And the government says, whoa, that's a lot. Maybe traditional frameworks, they're not quite there, but what we do know is that platforms like Coinbase hold billions of dollars of these assets for Australians. And so we probably need to protect that. So the government's proposal, Coinbase is very supportive of. We would like to see its introduction. We would like to see that exposure draft legislation, so we can make sure that across the industry, everyone who is serving customers and holding those assets, billions of dollars worth of assets, is up to standard. In the future, maybe we see layers on top of that to create more consumer protections, maybe make things look a little bit more like what traditional markets look like, but also by making sure that we're focusing on that really custodial relationship where the risk is, like, do I even own my assets? We can make sure that if we're focusing on that and getting that right, all of the innovation can continue to happen in the crypto asset space, which is why we're here in the first place. It's clear that many tokens and what they do look very similar to what traditional assets do, but there's very different risks involved. In traditional assets, we have contract terms between two parties, individuals and a company and individuals, whereas in tokenized assets, sometimes those rights and obligations, they don't transfer perfectly every time a token is transferred. And so it's very complicated. And so to try and understand, when we've gone through so many years of every asset being relatively obvious. A share is a share, super easy to work out. When a share is almost a share but not really a share, and sometimes if it's transferred, it's a little bit more difficult. And so as we go through these things, using really, really broad definitions actually makes it more difficult rather than easier to work out what an asset is. We have very broad frameworks in Australia for a reason. They're so broad that they overlap, and that's where the uncertainty is.
I think it is necessary that ASIC will offer some sort of, let's call it a transitional arrangement. Digital assets for financial services as they are currently regulated are not going through a transition period. This is not a case of you aren't regulated, now you are regulated. It's more a case of, hey, it turns out that after 10 years of thinking about it, you are regulated. You've always been regulated. There's no transition period because it's day dot started 10 years ago, whenever it was people started providing their particular financial service. So there's no transition period in the sense of when does the legislation start. But I think we need something that approximates a transition period that we would normally have when new legislation starts. So let's call it an amnesty or relief, whatever you want to call it. Something that says, hey, we've all just realised that actually there was this collective lack of knowledge, because that's kind of what it was, a collective lack of knowledge. The regulator didn't understand enough about digital assets. Digital assets businesses didn't understand enough about financial services regulation. Digital assets are complex. So it's a collective realisation now that financial services regulation has always applied. And because of that, I think we need to all pause and say, Let's take a breath, think this through, get it right. Therefore, we need something that approximates a transition period when new legislation starts, even though there is no new legislation starting right now.
Transitional periods are critical. They provide certainty and a pathway to regulation. If you don't have them, you basically have to comply yesterday rather than in 2 years' time or 12 months' time. So it creates the plan, I guess, for you to build your compliance frameworks, obtain the licenses and operationalise the things that you need to do in order to be a compliant business. Without a transitional period, you need to comply on day zero.